Okay, I'm going to take you through some basic photo editing tips. What we're going to do first is adjust the light. You should do this in almost every photo you ever edit. To do that, you go under Image, actually Enhance, Adjust Lighting, Levels, or Control L. So the keyboard shortcut's always better because it gets you there quicker and saves you going through the menus. When you go to that, it shows you what's called a histogram of the light information in a particular photo. If it's more weighted towards the left end, there are more dark areas, more towards the white end, more white. To adjust any of these are to change the black and white point. At the moment, this shows that there is actually pure black in the photo and almost pure white. If I move that black point, you can see the impact it has on the photo straight away. The black point is shifted so that darker areas go to black quite quickly. If you go to the extreme, of course, you almost get nothing in the photo. The other way, all the white points become brighter and eventually you'll lose detail. You basically want the black point on the edge of the histogram and the white on the right hand edge, but we're just going to slightly darken this image. It also will bring out a little bit of the color as well. The grey does the middle kind of light tones. That also has an impact on those middle tones, so you can play with that as well. You apply that once you've done it. What I'm going to do now is create a bit of selective focus in the photo. Now the photo is broadly all in focus, and we actually want to bring the attentional focus to the actual pumpkins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection around that area, and I actually want to first darken and then blur the outside selection area. So what we do after we've made where we want to be in focus, I go Select Inverse or Shift Control I, and that selects the remaining area. Now I'm going to feather this selection. Feather is also under Select or Alt Control D. Feather blurs the impact of what you do over a number of pixels. You generally always want to feather a selection unless you want a straight kind of line effect, which is not something I want today. The amount you feather depends on the quality of the image. On a standard kind of image, a feather about 150 is fine. If it's a web-based image, there are less pixels, so you don't feather as much. So I'm going to leave that at 150. Now when I apply an effect, it's going to affect that area, but also blur over this edge here. So I'm going to add a filter, and I'm going to go to blur and add a bit of a Gaussian blur. You see a real-time effect of that blur. You can go extreme, but you probably want to make it just gentle enough so that it still is realistic. So that will do for the actual blurring. I also want to darken that area a little bit to bring the attention to this. So while I've still got that selection selected, I'm going to go to Adjust Lighting, Levels again, and I'm just going to slightly darken that outside area. For this one I'm just going to use the middle tones. It's probably a bit much. Okay. On top of that, you can actually bring the color levels up a little bit. Under color, you can adjust the hue and saturation. Hue is the various hues of color, so it'll actually change the colors, whereas saturation is the strength of the color. Less saturation, slightly washed out effect, can be quite effective. So there's a hint of color, but it's moving towards black and white. All the way moves it straight black and white. The other way enhances the color. You go too far, it flares the color out and looks unrealistic. So you need to find a balance that works for your photo. Sometimes that will be desaturating, or taking the color out. Sometimes saturating, or putting it back in. You can do this selectively as well. You can choose an area and make those particular colors richer if you choose to. So I might just bump up the color about, let's say 7. Okay, there was a quick edit. I'll do another edit. Jump to another photo. We'll do some similar kind of things so you get the hang of them. We might do slightly more advanced selection areas on this one, however. Okay, we might start straight away by going to our levels. So Control L, and I'm just again going to add a bit more contrast to the photo. Might bring the white level up a little bit as well. Okay. Next I'm going to select an area. I'm just going to darken around the outside of the image to draw the attention in. So again, Alt Control D or Select Feather. I'm going to feather that again. I'll leave it at 150. Control L. I'm going to darken outside that area. And in fact, I didn't choose the inverse, so I need to do that. Select Inverse. Control L. Darken that area. Now I may as well, while I'm here, we'll add the same blur as before, a bit of a Gaussian blur. just to bring the attentional focus towards the center of the picture. Now we could leave that there, however we might do some slightly more advanced selections of the areas. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the, let's just do some rough ones, the lasso tool. I'm going to select around this number. Now I'm going to hold shift so I can make a second selection. I'm going to hold shift down throughout the entire selection, and I'm just going to select a bit of a rough area there. You can be a lot more detailed on how you do this, it's up to you. Now I'm going to select the inverse again, so shift control I or select inverse. I'm going to feather it, alt control D, not as much this time, maybe 50 pixels. And then I'm going to add a bit of a blur around that area. What this is going to do, I'll just bring that back a little bit. And you don't want to make it extreme. If you go too far, it loses its sense of reality, which if you want to do that, that's fine. But I want to keep at least a slight sense of reality. So what happens now is, even though you don't automatically realize it, but you've got greater focus on the foot and on the 8, we could start adjusting some lighting in various areas, but you have a slightly more high impact image, higher contrast and so forth. We could go in and boost the colors if you want to. Okay, wrong one, saturation, just to give it a little bit more impact. You can see what happens if I change the hue. It changes all the colors. What you could actually do, if you were eager, you could actually select all around the actual game here and just change the colors of that. If you leave the person in your selection, it changes their skin tone, which makes it look unrealistic. But if you want a different color, let me just show you. I shall demonstrate. Squares, what you could do, you would zoom in. I'll just do this quickly today, but if you want a very good selection, you'll zoom in and do it carefully. I'll just do a quick one today. I'll still feather it, even though I want it generally to go to that line. I'm going to do a small feather just so it blurs that change over a few pixels. And then I'm going to control U, brings this up. I could actually change the color of just that. Okay, so that could be effective depending on what color tones you wanted to create in your actual image. You can adjust the saturation too if you want, if it's a little bit bright. I might leave it at pink. Okay, I'll leave it there for today. Try those effects on some of your images, and at the end of the lesson we'll see what you've come up with.